Very good morning. So in this lecture series, I am going to discuss about the heat exchangers. The heat exchangers are very important devices in order to exchange the heat from one medium to another medium. Okay, and you people are very well aware about the heat exchangers in our routine life also. We will discuss about those routine applications also. At the same time, I would like to tell that heat exchangers are the integral part in the process industries where we need to exchange the heat in between the two different mediums. Okay, it may be like the waste heat recovery systems in the industries where you need to extract the waste heat from certain processes, from certain equipments, and that waste heat you need to use for some other application like other heating applications. So where the heat exchangers are used. At the same time, the heat exchangers are used for cooling applications also. We will discuss these things in a detailed manner in the subsequent lectures. So these are the objectives of this lecture series about the heat exchanger. The first one is to understand the concept of heat exchanger, what exactly the heat exchangers are, what is their definition, and what is their utility. Then we will see the classification of these heat exchangers and their certain applications. So at the starting of this lecture, I am going to club these two objectives and we will discuss together these two things. One is the concept and another is the classification. Then we will see the analysis part of the heat exchanger. So last two objectives are for the analysis part of the heat exchanger, where we need to understand certain concepts. Like the first concept and very important concept is overall heat transfer coefficient. This is similar to the overall heat transfer coefficient as you already learned there in conduction heat transfer. Okay, then there is another concept that is called as the fouling factor. This is nothing but the scaling inside the tube of the heat exchanger due to the continuous usage. Okay, so this is the fouling factor. Then we will see the two methods of analysis. So these two are very popular method of the analysis of the heat exchanger, analysis plus design of the heat exchangers. Okay. So the first method is called as log mean temperature difference, that is abbreviated as LMTD method, and second method is called as effectiveness NTU method. So these two are very popular methods. So we will discuss in detail about these two methods. Then the analysis of parallel flow and counter flow heat exchangers. So these are our objectives. So let us discuss all these objectives in detail one by one. Apart from all these objectives, in our laboratory we have certain experimental setup. Like we have one experimental setup of concentric tube heat exchanger. We have one more experimental setup of say that spiral coil heat exchanger, the spiral coil heat exchanger. So if time permit, we will discuss about these setups and their experimental analysis also. So that also we will see. So let us start with the first objective, that what is heat exchanger, what is that concept, and what is their detailed classification and certain applications. Okay, so as for the definition, heat exchangers are devices that facilitate the exchange of heat between the two fluids, okay, that are at different temperatures while keeping them from mixing with each other. So this is something like a conditional one, that we need to separate, we need to keep the two fluids separated and we need to exchange the heat. Okay. So before discussion of this definition, let us have certain example so that the definition will be more clear to you. This is the first example that you people are already well aware about. This is nothing but the car radiator, which is used to cool the engine. Okay, and what is the process of the heat transfer here? How the heat exchange is taking place? So the heat which is collected at the engine, that engine cylinder, that heat is taking is being taken by the circulating liquid. Okay, maybe you can say the engine oil, and it is circulated, the heated oil is circulated inside the tubes here in the radiator, and with the help of these baffles and with the help of the external fans, the heat exchange takes place. So there is a heat exchange between the two fluids. One is a air, which is the outside air, okay, and one fluid is the nothing but the liquid or the hot fluid which is taking heat from the that engine block. Okay. If I take the second example, that is the refrigerator. So in case of the refrigerator, the hot refrigerant from the compressor is cooled by convection into the atmosphere by passing it to these thin tubes. Okay, so these tubes and these fins and these tubes is acting as a heat exchanger. And which are the two fluids here? One is a refrigerant, that which is coming there from the coming from the refrigerator. Okay, and refrigerator space obviously, and another is the air. Okay, so these are the two fluids where there is a heat exchange taking place. In this case also there was oil, that is the cooling oil, and the air. So like this, two fluids were there. In industry, this is the most commonly used heat exchanger, that is called as shell and tube heat exchanger, ST, that is shell and tube heat exchanger. What is there in the shell and tube heat exchangers? So there is a, as the name indicate, there are the two components. One is a shell component and another is a tube component. So you can see this is the shell, this is the outside. So I will draw like this. So this is the shell. So like this, there is a shell. Okay. So this entire thing is a shell. Okay. And inside the shell there are the tubes. So one fluid, that is that I will call it as the shell side. So you can see this is the inlet and this is the outlet of the shell type, shell side fluid. One fluid of the different temperature is getting as the inlet here. Okay, and one another liquid, like this is the tube side fluid, that one liquid is getting inside the tubes and it is being circulated here, and this is the tube side outlet. It means that now there are the two fluid, one fluid is entering the shell and one fluid is entering the tube, and there is a heat exchange between these two fluids. So for this heat exchange, what is important is there should be delta T, that is the temperature difference. Okay, that's why in the definition I am writing heat exchangers are the devices that facilitate the exchange of heat between the two fluids that are at different temperature. Now, what is the utility of this entire setup? So you can consider this setup. This is one heat exchanger in certain industry. Okay, where for example you can consider that this is the example where the hot fluid is there, which is available, or say hot fluid is generated with the help of the boiler. Okay, so you consider there is the steam. Okay, so the steam is getting inside these tubes. Okay, like that, or the hot liquid is getting inside the tube, and I have to heat another liquid. Okay, so that another liquid is flowing inside the shell. So now one liquid, say for example this is cold liquid, so I'm writing C, the cold liquid, and I'm writing H for the hot liquid here from the tube side. So cold liquid is getting inside the shell and the hot liquid is getting inside the tubes, right? So because of that, the huge temperature difference between the cold and hot fluid, there is a heat exchange takes place. So the objective may be heating, objective may be cooling. So it depends on the application. So if you want to heat certain liquid, so you need to use the heated liquid, another heated liquid, and you need to perform this heat exchange process inside. Okay. Similar is the case if you want to cool certain liquid, so you need to circulate the cold liquid. Okay, and then you need to circulate the hot that liquid which is to be cooled also, and you need to ensure there is a proper heat exchange process in between the two fluids. So this is nothing but one example of the heat exchanger. So this heat exchanger is very popular, and that is called as a shell and tube heat exchanger. So we will see the detail in the classification of these heat exchangers. Okay. So this is that classification of the heat exchangers. So in fact, what happens, the heat exchangers are designed in so many sizes, so many types, so many configuration, and with the different flow arrangements, and those are used for different purposes. So based on all these, you can classify the heat exchanger in number of different ways. So here are certain popular ways to classify this heat exchanger. Okay, so the first way of this classification is according to heat transfer process. Okay, so according to heat transfer process, these three are the subcategories. This is first is the direct contact type heat exchanger. Number two is the transfer type heat exchanger or recuperator, And number three is called as regenerators or storage type of the exchangers. Okay, so let us see all these one by one. So first is a direct contact type heat exchanger, and the best example is cooling tower of the power plant. You can consider cooling tower of the power plant. Also, cooling towers are generally being used in the process industries also in order to exchange the heat. Okay, so in this direct type, as the name indicate, the two immiscible fluids at different temperatures are come in direct contact. Okay, that is we call it as a mix with each other. One fluid is sprayed through the other, and the examples are cooling tower, jet condenser, desuperheaters, open feed water heaters, and the scrubbers. You take this example of the cooling tower. In the cooling tower, the warm water which is coming from the condenser is getting sprinkled over here. Okay, and these are the passages for the cold air to enter in. Thus, in heat exchange, what will happen? The hot water which is being sprinkled from the top and the cold air, those are getting mixed and the heat is taken away. Okay, so this become the process of the direct heat exchange. That's why this is called as the direct type of the heat exchange, where the two fluid, one is the cool air and another is the warm water. These two fluids are getting mixed with each other. That's why this is called as a direct type or mixed type of the heat exchanger. Another is the transfer type of the heat exchangers or recuperator, and these are very popular. And we are going to analyze the recuperators only in the preceding discussions. The cold and hot fluid flow simultaneously through the device and the heat transfer through the wall separating them. It simply means if I consider one tube, for example, this is one tube, and inside that there is another tube. Okay, so this is the inside the tube. For example, in the inside tube, I am allowing the hot fluid to flow in, and this is the annular space or the outside tube where I will allow to cold fluid to flow. Okay, now as the hot and cold fluids are flowing, but those fluids are not in direct contact. There is a wall which is separating these two fluids. Okay, and there is a heat exchange will take place in between these two different temperature liquids. Okay, and definitely the hot fluid will give the heat to the cold fluid, and the process will continue, and this is the process of the heat transfer. And this entire device is called as a heat exchanger. Okay, so this is the most commonly used heat exchanger, where there is a no direct contact or there is no direct mixing in between the two fluids. The third is called as the regenerators or the storage type of the heat exchanger. The heat energy is transferred directly from one fluid to another across the solid surface, which is alternatively in contact with the both the fluids. Okay, and here is the example. This is a rotating type of the heat exchanger, where you can see this is the rotating matrix. Okay, cylindrical rotating matrix, and which is in contact with both the cold fluid also and the hot fluid also. You can imagine like there is a certain hot fluid which is flowing in, and inside this matrix the hot fluid is dissipating the heat here. Okay, and once it is getting rotated, the hot fluid, which is the heat energy which is collected here, that we call it the storage type. So once the heat energy which is stored here, after rotation, this heated part will come here, and this cold fluid will be in direct contact with the this stored heat, and that heat can be taken out. So like that, the hot energy or the heat from the hot fluid is getting stored here. The stored energy after circulation is getting dissipated in the cold fluid. Okay, so this is we call it the rotary type of the heat exchanger, where there is a rotating matrix. So these type of the heat exchangers are called as regenerators. Okay, so there are different types of regenerators also, but at this point, let us limit our discussion to the only the concept of the regenerator. Okay, then the second type of the classification is according to constructional features. So the very popular heat exchanger which is available in our lab also, that is called as the tubular heat exchangers. As the name indicates, tubular heat exchanger means there should be certain tubular structure. So these also called as tube in tube heat exchanger. Okay, so you might have come across this word, that is called as TIT, tube in tube heat exchanger, where the two concentric tubes. Okay, this also called concentric tube or double pipe heat exchanger. So like this, it is the image is shown here, that this is the outer tube, I will say the outer pipe, and this is the, you can see the inner tube. Fluid A, which is flowing inside the inner tube, and fluid B, which is flowing outside. Okay, so there is a net exchange of the heat in between these two fluids, and both the fluids are not mixing with each other. Okay, so this is called as tubular heat exchanger. Then there is one more very popular heat exchanger, that is called a shell and tube type of the heat exchanger, which I already explained there in your slide number 1, that there is a shell and there are the tubes. This heat exchanger also called as surface type of the condenser, surface condensers. It consists of a shell and a large number of parallel tubes. The heat transfer takes place as one fluid flows through the tube and the other fluid flows outside the tube through the shell, and the baffles are commonly used on the shell to create the turbulence and to keep the uniform spacing between the tubes. See, one image is shown here. Here you can see there is a shell. So this capsule type structure, that I will call as a shell. Okay, this is the shell inlet. So this is, I will say, the shell inlet, and this is, you can see, the shell outlet. Okay, and these are the different tubes. These tubes are separated from each other with the help of the baffles. So the baffles are made for the two purpose. One is to give the uniform spacing in between these tubes. At the same time, this will create the turbulence in the shell flow. Okay, so inside this tube there is a tube inlet. You can see there is a tube inlet, and this is the tube outlet. So one fluid is flowing inside the tube. Okay, like this it is getting circulated, and another fluid, that is the shell fluid, which is circulated in the shell. You can see these arrows are for the shell flow. So these are the shell flows. Okay, and these arrows are for the tube flow. So one fluid is transferring heat like this, and another fluid, the tube fluid, is transferring. So the tube fluid is like this. So there is a net exchange of heat in between the tube fluids. Okay, again, for this, this is the rear end header, and this is the front end header. So these are the provisions for the proper passage to the fluid flow. Okay, so this is the very popular, that is called as shell and tube heat exchanger. Here then, in the shell and tube heat exchanger also there are different types, right? It depends on how many shells are there, then how many tube passes are there. Based on that, there is another classification. Like some classifications are shown here. This is one classification: one shell pass and two tube pass heat exchanger. You can see one shell, it means, you can see this is the one shell, and two tube pass heat exchanger. It means this is the pass 1 of tube, and this is the pass 2 of tube. So this is pass 1, this is pass 2. That's why this is called a double pass or two tube pass. And as there is a single shell, that's why this heat exchanger I will call as a one shell pass two tube pass heat exchanger. Okay, now this is another example. You can see this is the one shell, and this shell is separated with the help of the separator. That's why there is one shell is at the top and one shell is at the bottom. That's why this simply I will call as two shell pass. Okay, and if I count the number of passes of the tube, so you can see this is one, like this. Okay, and there is again another pass like this one. Okay, so like this heat exchanger is known as two shell pass and two tube pass. Okay, so one pass is like this, one pass is like this. So that's why this exchanger is again shell and two tube heat exchanger, but this is the two shell pass, two tube pass heat exchanger. Like this, you can again classify it into a number of shells and number of tube passes heat exchangers. Okay. The next category in the same is fin type heat exchanger, or fin tube type, which is an enhanced heat transfer rate is required. The extended surface fins are used on the one side of the heat exchanger. These are used in gas turbines, automobiles, aeroplanes, heat pumps, refrigeration, electronics cooling of the equipment. Okay, the radiator of the automobile is example of such heat exchanger. This is the most popular example. That is a fin tube type of the heat exchanger, where you can see one fluid is flowing inside this tube like this serpentine, and these are the fins. These are the different fins. Okay, and another fluid may be like this, the cross fluid. Okay, So like this, in general, like in the radiator, as I explained there, one fluid is the heated oil, okay, or you can consider the heated water, and another fluid is the air. Another type is called as a compact heat exchanger, and these are again very popular. The heat transfer surface area per unit volume is very large. A heat exchanger with an area density, the ratio of the heat transfer surface area of the heat exchanger to its volume is called as area density. And this area density in the compact heat exchanger is greater than 7,000 meter square per meter cube. And that heat exchanger is called as a compact heat exchanger. So as the name indicates, the compact heat exchangers are the very efficient heat exchanger who are compact in size, but the rate of the heat transfer is more. So those are called as compact heat exchanger. Okay, sorry. Some of the examples are plate fin type of the heat exchanger, tube fin type heat exchanger, and the rotary regenerators are some of the examples of the compact heat exchangers. Now again, this is the very simple but most important classification of the heat exchanger. This is according to the flow arrangement. Okay, so first is called as a parallel flow heat exchanger. This is the example, parallel flow heat exchanger. You can consider all these three, all these are like a double tube or the concentric tube heat exchanger. Like there is outer tube and there is the inner tube. So as shown here, you can see this is the outer tube and this is the inner tube. So what is that meaning of the parallel flow, where the hot fluid is coming in this direction? Okay, this is the inlet and this is outlet, whereas the cold fluid is coming from the same direction, like this is the inlet and this is the outlet. It means that this is the direction of the tube, that hot fluid, okay, direction of the hot fluid. At the same time, you can see the direction of cold fluid is also like the same. Okay, so this is called as parallel flow heat exchanger, right? And another is that is called as a counter flow heat exchanger. What is the difference between these two? So you can see in the counter flow heat exchanger, I will put the direction of say one fluid same, like the hot fluid inlet is here and hot fluid outlet is here. So this is the direction of the hot fluid or the tube fluid, which is the inner tube. Okay, but I will now change the direction of this outer fluid or the fluid which is there in the shell. So now this is the direction of the inlet of the cold fluid and this is the outlet of the cold fluid. Okay, so if this is the cold in and the cold out, so you can see the directions are now totally countered each other. That's why if this is the direction of hot fluid, right, so this is the direction of the cold fluid. Now as the directions are opposite to each other, this is called as the counter flow heat exchanger. So this is the example of counter flow. Another example that is called as a cross flow heat exchanger. The two fluids flow at a right angle to each other, that is called as a cross flow heat exchanger. So you can see here that these are the different tubes. Okay, the tubes are separated with the help of these baffles. One fluid is flowing inside the tube, so one fluid is flowing like this. Okay, and another fluid is flowing in between these baffles, so another fluid is flowing like this way. That's why these two are crossing each other. That's why this heat exchanger is called as cross flow heat exchanger. Now in this case again there are two subtypes, like this is the type where the cross flow unmix and this is the tube flow unmix. It means that no fluid is mixing with each other. Now just imagine I will remove these baffles, I will just remove these baffles and I will allow the cold fluid to mix. Okay, means there is a single shell and the fluid is getting mixed with each other. Though this will be the cross flow, but the tube flow will be unmixed in that case and the cross flow will be mixed in that case. Okay, so like that, there are again two types of this cross flow heat exchangers. Now coming to the analysis part of the heat exchanger. So up till now you understood that what is the meaning of the heat exchanger, okay, and what are the different application and what is the classification of the heat exchanger. Now in order to do analysis of heat exchanger means what exactly to do. So in the analysis, either we need to do the two things, either we need to size the heat exchanger. Okay, we need to size the heat exchanger means you need to design the heat exchanger, what should be the surface area of the heat exchanger. Okay, so this is the first problem, that is called a sizing problem of the heat exchanger. Second problem are called as the rating problem of the heat exchanger, where we need to find what is the performance of the heat exchanger. It means simply you need to find what is now in the performance you need to find what is the rate of heat transfer in the heat exchanger, what is the effectiveness of the heat exchanger. Okay, so like that we need to see what the analysis of the heat exchanger, right? So in this analysis of the heat exchanger, the most important part is first to understand what exactly the heat transfer phenomena there in the heat exchangers. Okay, so in this analysis, let us consider the simple case, that is a concentric tube heat exchanger. So in the concentric tube heat exchanger, if I consider this as a case, like this is the inner tube, this is the outer tube. Okay, one hot fluid is flowing inside the tube and the cold fluid is flowing in the outer tube. So there is a net exchange of the heat in between the hot fluid and the cold fluid. Again, remember in this case, the two fluids are not getting mixed with each other. Okay, so this is not a direct type of the heat exchanger. This is the indirect type of the heat exchanger, or I will say non-contact. Okay, the fluids are not getting mixed here. Now, let us see that what exactly the heat transfer phenomena occurring here. So, if I consider that, if I consider this space and I will just take it out the this surface of the inner tube. So, this is the cross section of the inner tube. I will say the wall. Okay. Now, inside this wall here, there is a hot fluid. So, this is the hot fluid. For example, this is hot fluid having temperature Ti, that is the inner temperature. The radius is Ri. Okay, the surface area for the inner side, that is I am writing as a AI, that is the inner surface area. Hi is the heat transfer coefficient for convection heat transfer in between the hot fluid and the inner wall. Okay, so now at this inside surface, what will happen? Whenever there is a hot fluid is in contact with this inner wall, there is a convection heat transfer will take place in between the hot fluid and this inner wall. Okay. Now through this wall, this is the metallic wall, and inside this metal corresponding to the thermal conductivity of the material, the heat is getting conducted. Okay. So here I am writing this. This is I am drawing for the convection, that there is a convection heat transfer in between the hot fluid and this wall, and there will be the conduction heat transfer in the wall. After that, there is another liquid, that is the cold fluid which is in contact with this outer periphery of the inner tube. Okay, so this is that outer periphery of the inner tube and this is the cold fluid. So again there will be the convection heat transfer in between the outer periphery of inner tube to the cold fluid. Okay, so consider TO is the temperature of the cold fluid, AO is the outer surface area of the inner tube, and HO is the heat transfer coefficient at the outside surface. Okay, now most important point here to note, the HI, that is heat transfer coefficient at the inner side, and HO, that is heat transfer coefficient at the outer surface. Both these heat transfer coefficients are different from each other. And why these are different? Because the fluids are different and their flow are different. Okay, that's why HI and HO both will be different. At the same time, as Ri and Ro is different, the surface area AI and surface area AO is also different. Okay, that's why you are getting the different rate of heat transfer at the inner boundary and at the outer boundary. Now suppose I will draw the thermal network for this. So the first resistance offered by the convective heat transfer, that I will call as the surface resistance, and this is the first surface resistance R convection 1, that is I am writing 1 upon Hi, and this is the second convection resistance I am writing here, that is the 1 upon HOAO. Okay, so these two are the surface resistance, and this is the resistance, conduction resistance offered by this wall. So I am writing this as a conduction resistance. Okay, so this is 1 upon HIAI, 1 upon HOAO, and this is the wall. So if this is a cylinder, I need to put the formula for the thermal resistance offered by the cylindrical wall. That is nothing but natural log. Then you take the ratio of the two diameter divided by 2 pi Lk, like that. Okay. So now let us see that how we can estimate the total thermal resistance. So this is the R wall, that is the total resistance offered by the wall, that is natural log dO di divided by 2 pi KL. Okay, this is already you learnt in the conduction part. If I see the total thermal resistance, so R total is R convection 1, that is surface resistance 1, surface resistance 2, and plus this conduction resistance offered by the wall. Just put the formula 1 upon HII AI, 1 upon HOAO, and the R wall resistance. Okay, and this become your total resistance. So this becomes the total resistance. Okay, now if I want to see what is the total rate of heat transfer, so I'm putting this equation: Q is equal to delta T divided by RTH. Okay, now at this point I will introduce a new term, and this new term is nothing but overall heat transfer coefficient. So here I am writing Q is equal to UA delta T. Now what is this U? So this is the overall heat transfer coefficient. In this case, overall heat transfer coefficient will be different at the different surfaces. Like similar to HI and HO, I need to put the two terms, that is UO, UI and UO. This is the overall heat transfer coefficient at the inner surface and overall heat transfer coefficient at the outer surface. Okay. Now why these two heat transfer coefficients are different from each other? Because the convective heat transfer coefficients are different and the surface area are different. And why those are different? Because the two fluids are different. Okay, so two fluids at the same time their flow rates are different. That's why due to that the H is different and UI and UO is different. That's why a common question, or I will say the common mistake, is that if being asked that what is the overall heat transfer coefficient of the heat exchanger, so if you want to calculate, you must ask the counter question that overall heat transfer coefficient at what surface? Are you interested at the inner surface or are you interested at the outer surface? Okay, that's why UI and UO two are different and their calculations are also different. Okay, so here I am writing at the steady state UA delta T, that is UIAI delta T equal to UOAO delta T, the simple energy balance, where U is the overall heat transfer coefficient and RTH, that is this RTH total resistance, is nothing but 1 upon UA, that is 1 upon UAI, 1 upon UOAO. Okay. Now, as I told you that UO and UI will be different. So how to then write their formula? So in the formula, you can see this is the UO, that is outside wall, the overall heat transfer coefficient based on the outside tube surface. So that is 1 upon RTH AO. Okay, so 1 upon AO by AIHI, AO by 2 pi LK, natural log DO DI plus 1 upon HO, where I am considering outer surface. Okay, then this is again the simple that solution of the simple form of this equation. Similarly, overall heat transfer coefficient based on the inside of the tube surface, that I am writing UI 1 upon summation RTH AI, that is 1 upon HI AI upon 2 pi LK natural log DO DI plus AI AO HO. Okay, so this is for the inner surface. So while calculating for outer surface, I took AO. While calculating for inner surface, I took AI. This is what the major difference in the equation. So this is the equation which I can use for UI. Okay, and this is the simple form of the equation which I can use. Now here are certain, I will say the special cases in the heat exchanger, and these are to simplify the heat transfer analysis in the heat exchanger. Now in this case, now as we are familiar with this equation, that summation of RTS, that is the total resistance, is 1 upon UA, here 1 upon UIAI equal to 1 upon UOAO. Okay, so you should note that UIAI is equal to UOAO, but UI is not equal to UO. This will be possible unless AI is equal to AO. If this is so, then it is possible. Now you can tell when AI and AO equal is possible, it means that the thickness of the material is negligible or it is zero. Okay, so in fact it is not possible, but most of the time in order to reduce the conduction resistance, we consider the very thin wall. The tube is very thin wall. That's why we can consider this. We can assume this. Okay. Therefore, the overall heat transfer coefficient U of heat exchanger is meaningless unless the area on which it is based is specified. This is especially the case when one side of the tube wall is thin and other side is not, since the surface area of the thin side is several times that of the unthin side. Okay, and what is that another case? So when the wall thickness of the tube is small and the thermal conductivity of tube material is high, as is usually the case, the thermal resistance of the tube is negligible. Now, in that case, you can consider AI is equal to AO, that is equal to AS, and simply your equation can reduce to like this: 1 upon U is approximately equal to 1 upon HI plus 1 upon HO. Okay, so this is the case is possible only when we consider the thermal resistance. This thermal resistance offered by the thin wall is negligible, and this is generally the case. Okay, in the analysis we can consider. Okay, now this is one table which is given in your book, and this is the representative values of the overall heat transfer coefficient in the heat exchanger. Now in this values you can see type of the heat exchangers is given like water to water. Okay, what does this mean? There is a water, one fluid is water, maybe hot water, and here you can write the cold water. So if there is a water to water flow in the heat exchanger, so in general overall heat transfer coefficient values are like 850 to 1700 watt per meter square degree Celsius. Okay, these are just the general guidelines to you, that whenever in the calculation if you come across any heat transfer coefficient value, overall heat transfer coefficient value, so in general for water to water heat exchanger, this lies in this range. If I go for water to oil, the value is just 100 to 350. Like water to gasoline, like this, these are the several different things are given, and these are their general range of the heat transfer coefficient. In this entire table, what to observe is, if I consider the two liquids, two fluids are gas, that is gas to gas, then you can see the overall heat transfer coefficient is very less, that is 1040. Water to air in thin surface. Okay, water to air type of the heat exchanger, thin tubes, water in tubes. Okay, so in that case you can see 30 to 60 is the overall heat transfer coefficient. But there are certain cases where you require heat transfer coefficient to be more in order to achieve the more heat transfer rate. For example, here you can see the feed water heaters. Okay, where the maximum is given U, that is 8500. In some of the application, like the most popular application in the power plant is the steam condenser, where the overall heat transfer coefficient is 100 to 6000. Again, you can consider the steam to air fin tube, that is steam inside the tube. So in this case you can see 400 to 4000 is the value of the overall heat transfer coefficient. Okay, so these are the general values, or this will give the general idea about how the values of overall heat transfer coefficient are there in the these tubular heat exchangers. Okay, now coming to this fouling factor, as I told you, fouling is nothing but I will say due to the usage of the heat exchanger or the tube, there is a formation of the scale inside. Okay, so the performance of the heat exchangers usually deteriorates with time as a result of accumulation of deposit on the heat transfer surface. The layer of deposit represents additional resistance to the heat transfer and causes the rate of heat transfer in the heat exchanger decreases. This is the case what we are observing in our daily life also. See, this is one photograph is shown, that this is the huge pipe of the heat exchanger, where inside this is nothing but the scaling, that is the precipitation by water. Okay, the same thing you might have observed in our pipeline of the bathroom, the taps, where after certain duration, after certain usage of this pipeline, you can see there is a scale formation. So what is the effect of this scale formation? So in fact there are two effects. One is increase in the pumping power requirement, because this will offer the resistance to the flow also, and the second is that this scale have the low thermal conductivity, and because of that those will offer the resistance for the heat transfer. Okay, so we need to take this in account, because you imagine the case at your home that we generally never clean the taps, that water pipelines from the inside. It may be clean, say once in some 10 years, once in some 20 years. So like the similar case there in the industry, but in the industry we need to do the maintenance of the heat exchanger. but heat exchangers are so costly, and it is not possible to open the heat exchanger and to descale it, okay, frequently. Okay, so for that we need to consider the scaling in account in the heat transfer calculation, where we need to see what is the resistance offered by the scale to the heat transfer process. Okay, so how we can do that? So it is very simple, that we should know only that what is the that how much amount of the deposition can be there in the these tubes of the heat exchanger, and that can be calculated by calculating the fouling factor. So the net effect of this accumulation on the heat transfer is represented by the fouling factor RF, which is the measure of thermal resistance introduced by fouling. How to introduce this in the equation? So you can see, if I write the equation 1 upon UAS, that is the surface area of the heat exchanger, which is equal to 1 upon UIAI equal to 1 upon UOAO, that is the total R. So in this formula, like we have the formula 1 upon HIAI plus 1 upon HOAO plus this resistance. Okay, so now I will introduce two more term in the equation. One is RFI upon AI and one is RFO upon AO. What is that? AI and AO, these are the two surface area from the that is the inner surface area and the outer surface area of the tube, and RFI and RFO are the fouling factor. Okay, so RFI and RFO are the fouling factors at those surfaces. One is at the inner surface, one is at the outer surface. So these values can be calculated with the help of certain empirical correlations. Also, there are a lot of techniques to calculate these values. Okay, but in your syllabus, we will not going to calculate the values of the fouling factor. Instead, we will consider the fouling factor given in the examples in order to see what is the effect on the total thermal performance of the heat exchanger. Okay, so there is one TEMA. So this is the Tubular Exchanger Manufacturer, Tubular Exchanger Manufacturer Association. So this actually is the association of fabricators of one type of the heat exchanger, that is shell and tube heat exchanger. And especially this TEMA has given certain standards, and those are very popularly known as the TEMA standard. Okay, so what is the TEMA standard? The standards are for everything. It is for nomenclature, it is for fabrication tolerances in the heat exchangers. Okay, then those are for this is the tema, and those are for general fabrication and their performance. It is for mechanical standards also, that what should be the sizes of the shell and tubes, what are to be the sizes, means what are to be the technical specifications of the joints. Okay, even they are giving the standards for physical properties of the fluid, and what are the recommended good and bad practices of usage of the shell and tube heat exchanger, like that. So you can just search for the TEMA standards, and this is actually the huge area where the people are contributing in the heat exchanger. Okay, so why I'm telling you about the TEMA standard here, because in your book you can see there is a table given by the TEMA, and this is the table for the fouling factor. So these are RF value meter square degree Celsius per watt, and these are those resistance offered by the different scaling. Okay, if you use so in this table the two columns are given. One is the fluid column and one is the RF column, RT column, that is the resistance offered by this fouling. So distilled water, sea water, river water, boiling feed water below 500, sorry, 50 degrees Celsius. So this is the resistance offered by the these water in the heat exchanger. Unit is meter square degree Celsius per watt. Above 50 degrees Celsius, this is the value 0.002. Right. Then if I use the fuel oil, this is the value 0.0009. Steam oil free, so this is the value. So like this, all the values are given. So this table is generally being used for the RT values in some commonly used configuration. Like these are very commonly used configuration of the fluids in the industries also. Like most of the time, if I want to use the water, I will go with the distilled water, or I will go with the simple boiler feed water. If I want to go for a certain high duty, heavy duties, or I may go with the fuel oil also. Okay, sometimes in the cooling application I require the refrigerant. Okay, and sometime in the air heaters I require the air as one medium. So like this I need to consider this RT, and these are given by the TEMA. Okay. So the fouling factor is obviously zero for the new heat exchangers and increases with the time as the solid deposits built up on the heat exchanger surfaces. Okay, fouling factor depends on operating temperature and the velocity of the fluid as well as the length of the surface. And fouling increases with increasing the temperature and decreasing the velocity. As the velocity decreases, that scale become more time to get settled here. Okay, so at the lower velocity you are getting the more fouling. So there are certain standards actually. Those standards are used to reduce the fouling. Okay, there are certain standards for the routine maintenance of the heat exchangers and all. So those are not included actually in your syllabus. There are different types of fouling also. That is also not included in your syllabus. So this is how the only the concept of the fouling is there in your syllabus. So let us only discuss that concept in the problems also. Okay. So now this is the time to solve certain numericals. Let us solve one numerical and we may stop here. Before going for the numerical, I would like to summarize this entire discussion. So the first part in the discussion was what is heat exchanger. So now as you know, the heat exchanger is a device which is used to exchange the heat in between the two fluids. Okay. Then secondly, we have seen what is the general classification of the heat exchanger. Then we have seen what is the concept of the overall heat transfer coefficient with the heat exchanger and how UI, that is overall heat transfer coefficient based on the inner surface, and overall heat transfer coefficient based on the outer surface are different from each other. Then we have seen how to estimate this U and UO. Okay. Then we have seen what is called as RF, that is the fouling factor, and how to use this fouling factor in the equation. Okay, so these are a few common things which we have discussed now. Now let us solve one problem. In that problem, we will use these equation for overall heat transfer coefficient, and we will see how we can calculate the overall heat transfer coefficient. Okay, so here is the example given. Just look at the example for 2 minutes. All right. Now here estimation of U, that is estimation of the overall heat transfer coefficient. Now as it is shown in the example, it is a double tube heat exchanger, or I will say the concentric tube heat exchanger. Now identify the flow here. This is the hot oil which is flowing from this direction, and this is the cold water which is flowing from this direction. Okay, so cold water is flowing in this direction and the hot water or hot oil is flowing in this direction, like this. So that's why these both directions are counter to each other. That's why this is the counter flow heat exchanger. So you have given one counter flow heat exchanger like this. The inner tube is having the diameter 2 centimeter, outer tube is having the diameter 3 centimeter. Okay, hot oil is there which is flowing with 0.8 kg per second flow rate and having the temperature 80 degrees Celsius. Okay, then the cold water which is 45 degrees Celsius with the flow rate of 0.5 kg per second, and this is flowing in the direction. Now what will happen in this heat exchanger? Again the material is given, that is a copper tube. So you can see the properties, thermophysical properties of copper from the that data book and all. Okay. Now in this case, what is happening in the heat exchanger? So cold water which is 45 degrees Celsius, which will be in direct contact with the 80 degree, not direct, which is in the contact with the 80 degrees Celsius hot oil through this tube. Okay, and this is the length of the heat exchanger through which the cold water will flow and it will take the heat from the hot oil and it is getting heated. So definitely the temperature here will be more than 45 degrees Celsius because the cold water is getting heated. Okay, and what happened here? What will be the temperature of hot oil? It will be less than 80 degrees Celsius for sure. How much less and how much more, that we need to calculate. Okay, so in this case, let us not work out on what will be the temperature. Okay, what will be the exit temperature right now? We will do this analysis afterward. But right now in this example, let us do the analysis for U, that is overall heat transfer coefficient. So how will you calculate the overall heat transfer coefficient? So for that, let us consider few things, like let us assume few things. So the first assumption is it is given the copper tube, which is the inside tube. Let us consider that copper tube is a very thin tube, very thin. That's why I will consider both the surface area, that is inner and outer, are same. Thus, I can write the equation 1 upon u is approximately equal to 1 upon hi plus 1 upon ho. Now, suppose in the numerical, if it is not given, instead it is given that 2 centimeter is the inner diameter and 2.1 centimeter is the outer diameter. It means that AI and AO both are different, so you cannot use this equation in that case. But right now in this case, I am assuming that this is the thin wall tube, that's why I can use the equation. Okay. Then next is we need to see what is the flow velocity. So for that, I am calculating Vm, that is m dot, which is given m divided by rho into AC, that is the density into the cross section area. So for cold water, I am calculating here the first one, that is 0.5 kg per second is the cold water flow rate, divided by rho into pi by 4 d square, okay, of the inner tube. And this is what the velocity of the flow inside the tube, 1.61 meter per second. For this velocity, now I will calculate the Reynolds number. Reynolds number is Vd by nu. So this is velocity. The d is the diameter of the tube. So this is the inner diameter I am considering, 0.02 meter, and the kinematic viscosity. So these I have taken from the data book. Now the Reynolds number comes out to be 53,490. So as this is the 53,000, means for the inner flow this is greater than 10,000. So this is greater than 10,000. It simply means this is the your turbulent flow. Okay, and in the turbulent flow, let us go with the equation, a popular equation. Nusselt number is hd by k is 0.023 Re to the power 0.8 Prandtl to the power 0.4. Okay, which is you are very well familiar with the convection heat transfer now. So with the help of this equation, I am why I am doing this, because I need to calculate what is the value of h, this hi. Okay, so for that I am using this equation where I have calculated the Nusselt number, that is comes out to be 240. Nusselt number, the definition is hd by k. By that I can calculate what is the value of h. So this is what the value of h I am getting. Then the hydraulic diameter for the annular space, that I need to calculate. So this is the inner, that is the 2 centimeter, the inner diameter of the tube, and this is the diameter of outer tube. So this is the difference between the two diameters, and this is what I am getting the hydraulic diameter for the annular space. The mean velocity and the Reynolds number in this case will be Vm is m dot divided by rho AC. M dot, now I will take m dot of 0.8 kg per second. Density of this hot oil, that I can see from the data book, and I will put it here. And this is pi by 4 d square. While taking d, now I need to take the differences in the diameter. And here I am getting the velocity 2.39 meter per second. Okay. Based on that, now I can go with the Reynolds number is a Vm dh by again nu, where the velocity, which is calculated 2.39, the diameter, which is hydraulic diameter of the annular space, this is 0.01, and nu, that is kinematic viscosity. So here I am getting the value of the Reynolds number. Now this value of the Reynolds number is very less than 2300. That's why the flow is a laminar flow. That's why for the laminar flow, I'm considering the equation for the that laminar flow equation. Okay, so if I consider the equation for the laminar flow, I can calculate the Nusselt number. In this case, another way is given, and another way is that Nusselt number for the fully developed laminar flow in the circular annulus with one surface insulated and the other is isothermal. This is given by the Cage and Perkins, and this is given in reference number 8 of your book of the chapter of the heat exchanger. Okay, and according to this, in the annular space we can use this direct values, like this is the value of di divided by do ratio, Nusselt number nui and nuo. Okay, so for that, if I calculate what is di by do, so that comes out to be 0.02 by 0.03, that is 0.667. And for 0.667 by interpolation, I can calculate like 0.667 will be somewhere here, and I can calculate what is that NUI. So that will be by interpolation, it is coming somewhere here. So you can calculate it by interpolation. So it comes out to be Nusselt number 5.45. Okay, so based on this Nusselt number, sorry, now I can calculate what is the value of the HO, that is KDH by Nusselt number. So I have the value of Nusselt number, I can directly calculate what is the value of HO. Okay, once I put the value of the HO and value of the HI in the equation of U, I can calculate U, that is 1 upon HI plus 1 upon HO, and this is what the value I am getting of the overall heat transfer coefficient. Okay, so in this case, now there are certain important points. There are certain important points to understand. Let us observe the solution. Okay, so let us observe the first solution here. Here for the internal flow, the flow rate was 0.5 kg per second, and this is the cold water. Okay, water for 0.5 kg per second flowing through 2 centimeter tubes, where at the inner surface Nusselt number is 240. Okay, and the heat transfer coefficient is 7,600, 630, 663. Okay, and outer tube where there is the oil and with the flow rate of 0.8 kg per second, the Nusselt number is very less, that is terms around 0.5, sorry, 0.45. Okay, 0.45, and heat transfer coefficient is 75. Okay, now see, we have the two values. One is the HO value, that is 75, and one is the HI value, that is 7,663. But the overall heat transfer coefficient comes 74. It is close to the HO value. Okay. Now, what is the common observation here? The overall heat transfer coefficient in a heat exchanger is dominated by the smaller heat transfer coefficient when the difference between the two values is large. To improve the overall heat transfer coefficient and thus the heat transfer in this heat exchanger, we must use some enhancement techniques on the oil side, such as fin surface. Okay, because at the inner side, means at the inner tube, already the heat transfer coefficient is more. So the scope of more improvement is, I will say, the less. Okay, if I put certain baffles from the inside, it will create the turbulence, but it will again offer the resistance to the flow, and it will increase the pumping power requirement. Okay, but on the other side here, in the shell side, here outside this inner tube, in this case I can put certain fins. Okay, and these fins will act as a heat transfer enhancers, so those will increase the rate of heat transfer here. So that's why as the heat transfer coefficient at the outer side is less, it is recommended that you can use certain enhancement techniques like the fins in this heat exchanger on the oil slide. Okay, so this is what the example of the estimation of the U, that is overall heat transfer coefficient. At the same time, quickly we will see that how we can incorporate the effect of the fouling in the heat exchanger with the help of the one example. So this will be the last discussion in the estimation of the heat transfer coefficient. In the next lectures, we are going to see the LMTD methods and the NTU methods. So let us discuss this part and then we can stop. This is estimation of U, that is overall heat transfer coefficient, effect of FO, that is what is the effect of the fouling factor. Now in this case, again one similar heat exchanger is given. So this is the heat exchanger is given again the tube in tube heat exchanger. The hot fluid is in the inner tube like this, which is flowing in this direction, and the cold fluid is flowing in the outer tube in this direction. As the direction of the hot fluid is like this and direction of the cold fluid is like this, both are counter to each other. That's why again this heat exchanger is a counter flow heat exchanger. Okay, now in this heat exchanger analysis they are introducing one more term, that is the fouling. So how is the fouling now? After prolonged use of this heat exchanger, they are claiming that at this inner surface there is a deposition of the scale, that is the fouling. At the same time, at this outer surface also there is a deposition of the scale. So that's why there are two types of the fouling. One fouling at the inner surface and one fouling at the outer surface. So this simply I will write as a RO, okay, or RFO. let me correct this. So one fouling that I will write as a this one, that is the RFO. So this is RFO, that is fouling at the outer surface, and at the inner side this is RI, that is RFI, that is the fouling at the inner surface. Okay, and this is their view, the exploded view, where you can see this is the cold fluid, this is the outer lining, outer layer of the fouling, this is the tube wall. Okay, and this is the hot fluid, and this is inner line of the fouling. So this is that RFI inner layer, and this is the RFO, that is the outer layer. Okay, now again, see the dimensions and everything is given in the problem. Diameter is given. This outer tube diameter is 1.9 centimeter, whereas inner tube diameter is 1.5. HI is given as 800 watt per meter square degree Celsius. Now observe, HI is directly given. In the previous problem, we have calculated HI with the help of Nusselt number correlation. But here HI is directly given. HO is directly given, that is 1200. Okay. You can see HI 800, HO is 1200. It means the heat exchanger is a well balanced heat exchanger. Then RFI is given 0.0004 meter square degree Celsius per watt. This is what the fouling resistance offered by the that inner wall. Okay, and this is that fouling resistance which is offered by the outer, means outer wall surface here, right? So what is to analyze in this? Very first is the thermal resistance to the heat. This one, thermal resistance of the heat exchanger per unit length, that we need to calculate, and the overall heat transfer coefficient Ui and Uo based on the inner and the outer surface areas of the tube respectively. So that we need to calculate. So let us work out for one by one. What is the total resistance? So R is equal to 1 upon UAS, that is UIAI UOAO, which I can write the two surface resistance 1 upon HIAI 1 upon HOAO. Okay, plus the thermal resistance offered by the wall conduction, that is natural log DODI by 2 pi KL, plus these two fouling resistances RFI upon AI and RFA upon AO. Just simply put all the values. Surface area can be calculated like AI is pi DIL and AO is pi DOL. Okay, so put this value in this equation, you are getting the total value of the resistance R. But while doing so, you are getting these values. Okay, all HI, HO are given. If those are not given, you need to go with the Nusselt number correlation, what we did with the previous problem. Okay, then what is the overall heat transfer coefficient on the both side now? UI will be 1 upon RAI. R we already have calculated in this equation. Okay, and UO is 1 upon RAO. Okay, so now in this case you can see UI comes out to be 399 and UO comes out to be 315. What is the point of discussion here? Two overall heat transfer coefficient differ significantly, 399, 315. So if I calculate, it is comes around 27%. In this case, because of the considerable difference between the heat transfer surface areas on the inner and the outer side of the tube. Okay, DI is 1.5 centimeter and DO is 1.9 centimeter. Okay, so this is what significant difference means, the tube is significantly thick. Okay, so because of that, there is a 27% difference in the UI and value of UO. For tubes with negligible thickness, the difference between the two overall heat transfer coefficient would be negligible. Okay, that's why simply in actual practice we take the tube very thin tube, but there are certain practical limitation to go with the thin tube, because thin tube will corrode early. Okay, and it may reduce the life of the heat exchanger. That's why it depends on the application and what are the two different fluids and what is their corrosiveness. So the compatible thickness, the compatible tube material is generally chosen for the different applications of heat exchanger. Okay, so in the next class, we will start with this analysis of the heat exchangers. Meanwhile, I will recommend you that you should open any book of the heat transfer and you try to read this concept, what exactly and what are the different types of the fouling, and you try to solve the different problems. you do the practice of how we can use the correlation to calculate HI and to calculate HO, the convective heat transfer correlations. Okay, so let's meet again in the next class with the two very good methods, LMTD and effectiveness NTU method.